Hi guys, this is George in Professor Wellman's CSC 110 class, and that's 9 a.m. spring 2019. Um, Today I'm going to be going over Chapter 8's YouTube homework, which was to write a function, reverse each word in sentence that takes a sentence of words that may or may not have a final period and which returns a sentence. Each of which word is reversed. That's what it's supposed to say. You can assume that all letters are lowercase with no punctuation except the final period. For example, if sentence equals to be or not to be, that is the question, period, then the output should be this bit of gibberish. I'm not going to try and pronounce that for you guys, make a fool of myself. And then this was the big killer of this. This is what took me forever. It should be that gibberish with the period still at the end, and then down here he just does it without the period, and it's that same bit of gibberish or whatever. And that whole thing with like accept the final period, that little line. That is what really proved to be very challenging. And if you look in my shell, you can see that this took me many failed attempts. I don't even want to keep scrolling. I'm not gonna show you guys how many it actually is because it's embarrassing. All right, here's the code for that. I imported this string module, and I'm going to show you guys why in a second. I used page 124 in the book. That was my big breakthrough here, and talked about importing the string module when they wrote this remove punctuation function. So I start off with my reverse function, and we actually earlier in the homework had to write a reverse function, but it was a little bit different than this one that I had to rewrite here. And the difference here is I remove any punctuation before I reverse it, and I return it without the punctuation. So that for book, it would, if we reversed it, if we had book period, it would remove that period, and it would return the backwards of book. It would return cube, or whatever you want to say. That's how that function ends up working. And pretty much I use that .r strip. So I use I realize this can be kind of confusing because I used string as my parameter here, and this is a different sort of string. That string dot punctuation is coming from the string module, and that string dot punctuation it just contains like all these characters here. It's just the set of punctuation pretty much. And R strip just removes that, and this is the workhorse of that reverse function. We're using that slice method, and we leave the start and the end blank, and we step backwards -1. So that reverses your word. That means we're starting at the end and we're going backwards -1 to the start. And like for string, we're going to start at the end. We're going to start at G. Then we would go backwards -1, so towards the start. So it would be giving you G, and then it would return N, then it would return I, then R, then T, that S, that's what that means right there. And then I defined the function that he wants. I had to use that reverse function as a helper function in my next function. And what this one does is it takes a sentence of words that may or may not have a final period. That's the big thing, or any sort of punctuation. The way that I wrote this, actually, and which returns a sentence with each word reversed. You can assume that all letters are lowercase with no punctuation except the final period. Here's this punctuation equals set of string dot punctuation. This is kind of new to me. I wrote some pseudocode. A friend kind of told me about this set thing. And pretty much what that is I define punctuation. I'm calling the whole set of string dot punctuation. Everything that string dot punctuation has, I'm using a set. And a set is just like an unordered list of characters. I don't know if list is maybe the right word, but it's an unordered set of characters that contains string dot punctuation. I called it punctuation. It doesn't really end up shortening it that much. Next line, words equals sentence dot split. So sentences are input. Whatever the input is, we're going to split it up, and it's going to give us a list of each word, and that list is going to be called words. So we're going to set, like, if you gave it this string, it would take a list that would have takes a sentence of, it would be a list of all those words, and we're going to call that words. Then I set up an empty list, and I called that backwards. You get it? That's a little play on words here. So list of words that are backwards. For word in that list of words, this is the for loop of that function that makes this function work. For word in words, we're gonna do backwards dot append reverse word. What that pretty much is doing is saying whatever like string you give it, we're gonna traverse that string, and we're gonna after we've already made that string into a list, we're gonna traverse that list, and we're gonna reverse each word in that list using our helper function, and we're gonna add those new reversed words to this new blank list called backwards. And if that word in if that word that slice thing, -1, and what that -1 is saying, the last character of whatever word you're giving it, that's what word -1. So in punctuation, so if the last character of whatever word we're giving it is a punctuation mark, is like something like this, a colon, a period, an exclamation point, this is what we're going to do to it. We're going to do this right here. And what that means is the last word of the list, the word that we're working with, we're going to say backwards -1. That's what that means, is the last word of that list, like the one that has the punctuation, the one that we're working on right now as we're traversing it. It's going to equal whatever that word is. Remember, when we use that reverse function, we've removed any sort of period there. So we're going to say whatever that word is plus whatever that punctuation is. So that's going to give us that punctuation at the end, as it should be, how he wants it. With the, if you remember, he wanted it like this with the punctuation at the end. Do you see that? And that this is very important, because if you don't do something like this, then I'm going to look for one of my failed attempts to show you what it was coming up as. It would come up, that was when I was getting closer. Okay, I have a limited amount of time here, but it would pretty much come up like this bit of gibberish, but that period would be right here. That's what would be going on. So and then we're gonna return backwards. We're gonna return that list, and that backwards is actually a list. So when we print it out, we have to actually use this dot join to take that list and join it all together as a string. And this is all just kind of, I was really just testing this sort of stuff. I can actually show that to you. So if only if the punctuation is at the end is what that reversal does, and that's why I tested that. And that function doesn't just work for the last final period either. The way that I wrote it, I could put a little semicolon in the middle, to be or not to be, semicolon. That is the question. I think that might be how Shakespeare, how it's modernly translated. I'm just going to show you guys that this works any way you do it. If you look at that, you can see that the punctuation is still in the right place, despite that whole, like removing punctuation thing, it's just when it comes at the end, if you could see like reversed, you can see it right there actually. See how the punctuation is at the end, and I use that reverse function, it removes the punctuation. But if you look at my sentence here, I have that punctuation in the middle of the sentence, that semicolon, and it comes in the right spot. It comes properly, and that period comes at the end there. So I'm pretty proud of this. This was proved to be very challenging, but it was pretty fun to figure it out. Honestly, it was very satisfying. So I appreciate you guys for checking that out for me. Hopefully this can help somebody out in the future. Thank you. Come again.